Hey everybody, welcome back to Vedic Sage. I'm Dr. Dhaliwal, and today we're going to be talking about chronic fatigue syndrome from an Ayurvedic perspective. Now, Ayurveda looks at chronic fatigue as a component of two or three main issues or conditions, starting off with impaired Agni. And we know that Agni is the digestive fire or the digestive capacity primarily in the gastrointestinal tract or GI system. Although there's many different Agnis in the body, we're going to focus on Agni of the GI system. We also know that when Agni is impaired, this often leads to the production of ama, which is undigested food material and thought to be toxic to the body. And perhaps most importantly is the depletion of ojas, which is thought to be the essence of all the bodily tissue. And we'll talk about this later in detail. The depletion of ojas implies decrease in overall well-being of the body and a decrease in the immune system. So if we take a look at the first main condition, which is impaired Agni, and we know that Agni is the digestive fire of the body, we have to ask ourselves, what are certain conditions that impair Agni? Just from a simple standpoint, we know that Agni has qualities of hot, sharp, and light. Therefore, if we take in or consume food that have the opposing qualities, this ultimately insults the function of Agni. For example, if we take in heavy, dull, and cold foods, this will impair the function or the digestive fire of Agni. Due to the impaired function of Agni, the food is not adequately and properly digested and therefore results in the production of ama, which is the undigested food material. The next concern that we have to take into consideration is the absorption of this ama from the GI tract into the generalized systemic circulation. So as the ama, or the undigested food material, which is toxic to the body, gets absorbed into the plasma, or rasa dhatu from an Ayurvedic perspective, this will create symptoms such as fever, lymphatic congestion, tender lymph nodes, and overall generalized fatigue. As the ama not only affects the rasa dhatu, but now starts to affect the rakta dhatu, which is the hematocrit, for example, red blood cells, this ama is going to impair the function of blood. And we know the function of blood allows for the gas exchange. Okay, it provides a transport of oxygen from the lungs to the tissue and carbon dioxide from the tissue back to the lungs to breathe off during respiration. So therefore, ama is going to affect the red blood cells by decreasing the oxygen carrying capacity and therefore worsen the symptoms of lethargy and fatigue. Likewise, if ama moves into the mamsa dhatu, which is considered muscle tissue, this is going to create symptoms similar to fibromyalgia. Okay, these people are going to have muscle pain, muscle stiffness. If ama moves into the fat tissue, which is considered mita dhatu, these individuals have extreme sensitivity to fat. Even small consumption of butter can create a headache for these people. Likewise, if ama moves into ashti dhatu, this can create signs and symptoms of bone and joint pain. And ultimately, if ama moves into the majja dhatu, which is the nervous tissue, or shukra artava, which is the reproductive sex organs, this can create signs and symptoms similar to multiple sclerosis. Often these people are treated for MS, multiple sclerosis, without a beneficial outcome. And lastly, if ama, the toxic material, enters into the sexual organs, this can lead to sexual debility. So the management of chronic fatigue syndrome from an Ayurvedic perspective is fascinating because they look at 4 different modalities of how to manage this condition. For example, they look at the specific disease overall. Chronic fatigue syndrome can be managed with herbs such as bala, which means strength, which gives vitality to the body. So that's an herb specific for the disease. Secondly, which we haven't covered yet, is to take into account which dosha is involved. For example, vata, pitta, or kapha. So if these doshas get absorbed into the systemic circulation and ultimately affecting the bodily tissues, Ayurveda takes this into account. The next concern from an Ayurvedic perspective is managing Agni. And again, in previous lectures, we talked about different types of Agni. And the Ayurvedic management also takes into account which dhatus are affected or the bodily tissues are affected by either ama or the imbalanced doshas that enter into the circulation. So in the next videos, we'll talk about the differentiation between vata, pitta, and kapha type of chronic fatigue syndromes from an Ayurvedic perspective. I hope you guys enjoyed. Until next time, take care and be well.